Hi, I'm Harry from Project Heaven. I'm going to run you through today the underbody process that we use to protect the underbody of all our chassis. So today I'm just going to run you through all of the products that we specifically use on our underbodies when we're protecting a car. Obviously a lot of money goes into restoring a car and the foundations need to be really good. So we're going to show you the different products we use, why we use them. We'll explain on the whiteboard what each part's doing, and then hopefully you can understand the reason why we go in such depth to keep the underbody of a car so well protected. So the first thing we must do is check that we have good metal to work on when we're doing all of these processes. That's the first essential part. There's no point covering over rust. It needs to all be gone before we start anything. So there's ways of getting rid of rust in the first place. Ideally, you would cut it out and replace it like we've done on this Aston Martin here. We've replaced a sill section with new metalwork. That's ideal. But obviously if it's a whole chassis, we can't do that. Some people choose to have their cars dipped in an acid, so it gets rid of everything and they're starting from scratch. Or the other way is to put it on a spit, strip it all down, turn it around and completely blast the shell. Everything that's visible is removed and you're back to a really good solid metal substrate. If you're dipping a body in acid, then the problem is that that acid will continue to work. So even if there's sections of like chassis legs or behind panels that you can never really get to clean out the acid, then it will continue to work and start to erode some of these products that you're carefully choosing to put on the car. So that's why we don't use acid. It's a good process. Some people really love it, but we just prefer to blast. So we basically use a blasting machine to blast off everything that's there, get rid of all the old sealers, underbody protection, and we start from scratch. And the first thing we want to do is we want to clean the area that we've got really well. Now actually aluminium can start to corrode in a matter of minutes, so you really need to start hitting that with some anti-corrosive products as soon as possible. But steel also can start, even in a microscopic sense, begin to corrode quite quickly. So there's a couple of products that we can use to start to eliminate that corrosion from happening. First of all, when a piece of metal comes back and it's blasted, we could put on a wash etch or an etch primer. Now that serves a couple of purposes. It has three main qualities. The first one is that it creates a barrier between the elements that the metal needs to corrode, so oxygen and water. So there's a physical barrier in place. So secondly, it provides as an electrical insulator. So it stops the electrical chemical reaction from starting. So that's another barrier effect that is useful to us. Third area is that it has active anti-corrosive components to it. So if there is microscopic corrosion that's been missed, then this will actually stop that from happening, the active ingredients within that. Now that's a wash etch or a spray-on etch, and they're good. The only downside to them is that they could quite easily be removed with thinners, or sometimes even strong brake cleaners can remove them, and they easily get scratched. They're not a very strong product. They're designed to be put on and then straight over the top with some sort of a primer or other products. What we tend to use here is called epoxy primer. We've mentioned this quite a few times on our video, but this is basically a two-part anti-corrosive solid epoxy, and it's very tough to mark. It seals in all the metal components. They actually test these products by putting them in the North Sea and leaving them for some years to see what effect they have. So it's a very durable coating that we start on all of our products. Actually on the back of this particular, this is an Aston Martin DB4. This is the fuel flap where the fuel goes in. And on the back here you can actually see some pitting. So where we've blasted it and then covered it in epoxy, that is now sealed off. So we can do all of our processes on top of that. We can put primers, we can put fillers on top of this, and that seal, that epoxy seal, is there for life. So that's a really important process that we follow when we do all of our restoration work. So let's put that on the board now. We can see our first layer is an epoxy layer. So if you look at this profile here of a chassis leg on the underside of a car, so imagine that this is a floor pan and this is a bit of the chassis leg, for example. What we want to do, imagine that this has just been freshly blasted or dipped, it's brand new, it's clean metal, it's been cleaned properly. The first thing we want to do is to seal that area with a spray-on epoxy primer. Or an etch. So that's our first layer. We've now sealed that environment so we can do all of our further processes. But if you just notice here where you've got two seams joining, it's quite common on classic cars for the chassis to not be terribly strong. Obviously over the years we've developed stronger and stronger metals and stronger chassis, but the problem is on older cars particularly, the bodies can flex. So where you have two seams joined like this spray out car here, what we use then is a high quality sealer. And this high quality sealer allows, it stays rubbery and it allows everything to bend and not break that seal. So no moisture can creep underneath when it comes to a seal joint like this. So we do that on all of the seams that we can see. We put a seal of this rubberized seam sealer that's designed specifically to hold back that corrosion from creeping in. So the next thing we want to put on our whiteboard diagram here is some seam sealer over the joins. So we would put seam sealer here that will provide any protection and movement if the car should flex in any way. So we're making some progress in protecting our underbody, but of course it's a very harsh environment under there. You've got to think the wheels are spinning and turning and there's stones being flown up underneath. There's also, you might catch a bit of a grass verge or something under there. So it still needs some more protection on top of that. So here we have a couple of options. This is one option. This is a Raptor, is a particular brand. There's other brands as well. So this bed liner, what this does is it forms a very hard 2-pack layer or film of paint essentially that will protect the body. It's a really strong product. And what we can do is we can also paint on top of this. So in this example, it's painted. You can see it's nice and smooth. Well, it can be put on smooth, it can be put on coarse as well. But basically this can be bent and it's got some flexibility to seal in the body. So that's a really good product, and that will be very difficult to break down if stones hit it or anything should try and damage it. It's a very strong product. So we quite favour putting some of that on underbodies as well. There is another option. There's one that's more rubbery. This is a water-based stone chip coating. Now it's worth mentioning that we use a very high quality product that we've tested and we feel is a good product. We select a water-based one. There's good reason for that. There are solvent-based ones, but the downside to solvent-based ones is they become porous. So they're actually almost like a sponge under the body of the car and can absorb moisture, and we don't want that. So we use this water-based one that seals nicely so that we can paint. Now this is a 1-pack product. It's not as strong as this bed liner, but it is very rubbery. So it's ideal for sort of wheel arches or areas that are going to have a lot of impacts. Then they can absorb the impacts a lot better. So we do quite like this product as well. That's another good product. So let's put that on the whiteboard. So let's add in then, let's say a bed liner coating that's going to protect all that area. Now you can paint that on top of that, like that example showed. We'll just say we're just going to leave it black in this instance, which is what it comes in natively. So we're nearly there. We've got most of the process. We've got quite a lot of protection going on there, and that would almost be ideal to go out into the environment and work. However, there is another stage that we do just to protect the underneath of a body or chassis. So one of the things with an underbody coating like this is it's quite a textured finish unless it's painted, and it can be easy for dirt and things that could cause corrosion to stick to. So what we like to do then is to put a wax on top of everything to seal it all in, so no moisture can start getting in there right from the start. So for this one's like a black wax that we can put over, if we just wanted it black, but there's also a clear wax, transparent wax, that can cover all, if you've got a freshly painted surface like that, we can also add a transparent wax. Now that's going to stop any moisture from being able to stick to the surface. It goes on quite wet, but it dries to be a harder film over time. But that's really good in joints and seams. It's a good product, so we always, on our underbodies, we put a coat of wax when we've finished that will go with the final car when it's delivered back to the customer. So let's put this wax coat on our diagram here as well. So we're going to put this wax film over the top of all of this, and that forms our final protective layer. However, you will notice a problem. So we've protected all the outside, but what about this section on the inside? So this is all bare metal in here, and that's got no protection. So how do we address that area? Well, in two ways. First of all, when it comes to the epoxy stage, we use a cavity wax gun, similar to this one here, to inject epoxy on the inside of the chassis legs. So we can put that in as well. We can put an epoxy layer that's in the inside. Then we'll use a clear hot wax, similar to this one here, that's heated up to make it very thin, and then it's injected in a cavity wax nozzle that will go in, and it will, as the air pressure goes in, it will expand to all the walls of the surface. So it's going to catch here all around the inside and seal that section in as well. But as it dries and cools, it will actually form a solid layer. Now that is so crucial, particularly on a dipped panel. So as you can see throughout this whole process, it's not just a 5-minute job that's just done. We have to take our time to carefully do these things, because that is what will provide protection for many years to come. And then hopefully you'll have a solid foundation, a solid chassis that, even if repairs have to happen in the future, will be easier to repair because it's got solid, good quality metal. So we hope that's been useful for you. You can see the process that we use to underbody seal a car, the reasons why we choose the products that we do. You can see it's quite an extensive process, and it's taken quite a lot of thought to get it just right. We want it to be most cost efficient for the customer, which usually means the quickest process possible, but also the most thorough and best choice and selection of products. So that's why we've done this demonstration, to show you what we do.